As the representative of the solid oxide electrolyzer community, that is one of the challenges that is always posed, because solid oxide technology tends to be smaller area cells. So we digest that issue a lot in terms of what does that really mean. And back to standardization, there's lots of examples of industries where you can build massive quantities of something in a factory and significantly reduce the cost. The best example is probably automotive batteries, where Tesla took an approach that was counter to all other essentially automotive batteries and decided to build battery banks out of much smaller cells than anyone else. And to be honest, they reduced the costs even faster than the industry expected. And no one expected them to achieve these costs that we have today anywhere near the time horizon that they did. So we believe that, yes, there is a size of cell that will matter to stack costs, but building bigger and bigger cells is not necessarily the only way to get down that cost curve. It's more important to get the quality right, and I think, as was mentioned earlier, it's more important to do as much as you can in a high-volume factory, no matter what you do in this industry, and stop having big custom projects on site which involve welding and pipe bending and concrete pouring and special permitting and certification. That's a much bigger cost driver than the size of the cells, if I'm honest with you. I actually don't think this industry takes off on a single project basis. There's no investment decision that can rationalize that much upfront risk and make it bankable. You have to believe that there's a portfolio of projects that follow that reward you for taking that initial risk. And that's why partnerships are so important. They need to stand the test of more than one project, and they need to offer everyone a reward for that risk, because the risk doesn't get mitigated immediately, and you can't easily represent that risk accurately at the front end. And so, we believe that risk needs to be owned and managed by the entity that has best control over it and can minimize it. And so, we take the technology risk very seriously. There's risk in the input prices that someone needs to somehow give assurances to. There's an off-taker risk. They need to buy the hydrogen and give people credibility to the demand. And so everyone needs to play a role in that. But at the moment, the incentives to take that risk need to be more evident, if I'm honest, because people are staring at this risk and scratching their heads to determine if it's bankable or not. The building block for different subsystems is going to be different, and obviously maybe the stacks and electrolyzer modules will be a smaller Lego brick, to use that analogy, and other water treatment subsystems, perhaps the electrical input subsystems are going to be engineered to be bigger to service more banks of repeatable units. I think the industry needs to figure that out. There's going to be an economic reward for standardizing in bigger blocks, I think, in those other subsystems. But I mean, if you take things like data centers, where they've digested the modularity in an incredibly interesting way, they build data centers still using standardized racks, and they fill them with hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of similar modules. And that's how they've decided to lower cost and scale at pace. And scaling at pace is going to matter, back to Thilo's point. If we're going to get to these goals, we have to figure out how to scale quickly and very, very predictably, and not have to engineer everything to a specific use case. And so I think the industry is going to have to figure that out, which level of standardization each subsystem deserves, possibly even geographically. But the standardization, I think, is an imperative to speed predictability.
And I think just to add, I think you make a really important point there between the subsystems, because there's some pieces that are going to be smaller and standard and record, and other things that will need to be bigger around it. And it's going to be getting that right balance is the solution you need.
Yeah. We're trying to do something at scale and at pace that has some complexity, and that's difficult, and it has some risk. But for this industry to succeed, we need to become an industry that actually means we're going to do it, and do it at scale and at pace. And unfortunately, that's a cultural shift in an industry that isn't used to doing things at pace and taking on those risks. And we need to find a way to change that culture so that scaling can occur, because the engineering capability to do it is there. There's other factors that I think slow us down.